Hey y'all, hope everybody's having a great day today. It's a beautiful day here in Augusta. Getting this last bit of spring, I imagine. Typically, start of June, we start to hit that stage where the air gets so thick you have to swallow it before you can breathe it. But yeah, it was a nice breeze blowing today. I was able to get outside and get some good sunshine, and yeah, it's just been a good day overall. I hope it has been for you as well. Um, Today we're going over step 11. Step 11 says this: we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Um, I don't want to assume, my mother and I don't want to assume that every person that comes through our challenge has a relationship with God, has a prayer life, has a meditation life. I know the majority of people that have come through so far are those kind of people. But even for you, I think this will be helpful. It's definitely been helpful for me. And again, I can't recommend I can't recommend strong enough to get a copy of this book, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, it's just so full of wisdom. It's so full of just practical, useful, everyday suggestions and directions on how to live a spiritual life. And as I've said, since the beginning of doing these meditations, um, that is going to be the pendulum by which your success with your weight and your overall health swings, is your spiritual life. Because what I have noticed, and really what I'm saying by that is your emotional life. They're one and the same. Spiritual health is emotional health. They're one and the same. And typically, what we encounter with having been doing this for several years is any person that comes in, and I believe most of you can admit, I can definitely admit that when I am having difficulty in taking care of my body physically and eating optimally and exercising and doing the things that I know are healthy for me, is because I have become emotionally unsettled. I have picked up my dis-ease again. I like to say the word disease that way because it reminds me that really what is happening is that I am diseased. I'm not emotionally healthy. I've allowed external circumstances to start to affect me internally, and I've internalized things that are out of my control, or I've not taken control and used my power in the areas that I know I can, such as in preparing optimal food, or what we're going to talk about here, which is in prayer and meditation. And there's just so much good stuff in this book. Again, I'd like to give you some original thoughts. I think I just did for the first part, but there's so much. It would be very arrogant of me to not just simply read from this book, because there is just so much wisdom here, and maybe give some of my own personal, experience with it. But there's just so much clear wisdom here. It would be arrogant of me to just not read from this book. I know maybe some of you, anyway, I think y'all will be fine with it. And if not, that'll be okay too. um, so it talks about, in this first part, it goes, and I'll just say this is true in my life, and I hope that it becomes true in yours. If you are someone that maybe scoffs at prayer and meditation, I hope that you will come to, that you will take, just like you would take my mom and I's advice and recommendations on eating, that you will take our advice on this as well. That for us, for those of us who have make regular use of prayer and meditation would no more do without it than we who would refuse air, food, or sunshine. And that is the truth. And for the same reason, when we refuse air, light, or food, the body suffers. That's actually in this book. So you hear us talk about sunshine, you hear us talk about breathing, you hear us talking about food all the time. Well, this is just as important as those. Prayer and meditation is just as important. I got to remember to look this way into the camera. Like I said, I still struggle with that at times, but it's just such a vital part of who we are as human beings, is to be in touch with something greater than ourselves. And for a while, if you're not someone who prays and meditates regularly, the group can be that for you. I have no problem with that. You can lean on someone else's faith until you can begin to develop your own. But I know my mom and I's greatest hope would be that at the end of this challenge, you walk away not only more healthy, but also more connected to God. So let's see. It talks about self-examination, and that prayer is part of that. Let me see here. Talks about different prayers that you could use, but it also gives one. And I use this prayer, have used this prayer often in my life when sometimes, and it talks about this later on in the chapter, sometimes I get stuck, in my devotional life and my prayer life. I've even been there recently in some different areas and at different times. And this prayer is one by St. Francis. I don't know if you've ever done much study of St. Francis, but he's just a great man of God, and did some amazing things, for the kingdom of God. But this is a prayer from him, and I cannot pray this prayer and continue to be in a bad mood, or continue to be stressed, or continue to be depressed or anxious or anything. It just brings me back to the reality of what life is all about for me. And I hope that it will do that for you guys as well. But I'm just going to read that prayer, and hopefully you'll be able to, and you can look it up, you can Google it, the prayer of St. Francis. It's a really good one. It says, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort. Let me start over. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. That's powerful stuff. Powerful. And it uses this as kind of a segue into meditation. Now, I've heard, prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God. And I agree with that. One tool that I use a lot of times is I will pray about different things specifically, and it goes into that here in a minute. And then I will write down what I believe God is saying back to me. I've got a journal full of those kind of things where, I'll be praying about something and I'll just start writing. And what is always shocking to me about that is how, and I wish, not always shocking, it was in the beginning, but it consistently surprises me how kind those words are. how loving those words are that come out when I do that. How full of all these things that I just mentioned they are. So I definitely recommend maybe trying that. But just starting off, the basics of meditation. A simple way that you can meditate is to break down each line of this prayer and go over it. So if it was going to say, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, you could meditate on what does a channel do. It between two separate entities, it helps things flow between those two separate things. And so, and I'll just sit there and meditate on that and think about that. And, when I'm in a situation where I feel like there's hostility, I'm going to be conscious and pray in that moment, meditate and pray and say, Lord, if there's any situation that might happen today that where there is hostility, let me be a peacemaker. Let me not be somebody that just runs from conflict, but let me be somebody that steps into conflict and that humbly and assertively love somebody in that situation, and brings peace into that situation. And you can do that throughout the whole prayer, just spending time meditating on each line of that prayer. One of the best things you can do to meditate, and I've mentioned this before, y'all have seen me do this, is just go outside and be in nature and just spend some time looking at nature and what it is. And my thoughts tend to be along these lines, that all of this is happening. The trees are growing, the grass is growing. I'll get down and look at the grass or the dirt and see all the microscopic insects that are living their lives, and all these millions and billions of microorganisms that I can't even see. And all of this is happening just the way it is supposed to. And so whatever is going on in my life, whatever may seem to be off kilter, if God is in control of all of that, and all of that is working just like it's supposed to, then the same thing just might be happening in my life with whatever I think is wrong. And it just helps me it humbles me and gets me out of that self-centeredness, that whatever it is that's causing me to be unsettled in my life is really just me not trusting in a being that that made all of this. And it just humbles me, and it lightens my spirit. It helps me just to remember how big God is and how I'm not so big. But it also helps me remember that, hey, even though he has all of this other stuff going on, that he also will pay attention to me and wants to talk to me and wants to be involved in my life, and that of all the creations that he made, I'm the apple of his eye. As a human being, I'm the apple of his eye, and I'm his favorite. There are things about me that are completely different than what he made and put into anyone else. And so I'm not any more special than anybody else, but I am pretty special. I think the odds of being a human being are like 1 to the or like a million to the 10th power of the probability of all the things that were created for us to actually wind up being a human being is like astronomical odds. And he chose to allow me to be a human being and to live on this earth and experience this life. And so, yeah, it's not only a humbling thing, but it's also an uplifting thing at the same time. So anyway, just some things that I do that I hope will help you guys. I'm going to go through a couple things here, just talking about prayer that I thought were really powerful. Let's see. Yeah, it says, of course, it is reasonable and understandable that the question is often asked, why can't we take specific and troubling dilemma straight to God and in prayer secure from Him sure and definite answers to our request. This can be done, but it has hazards. We have seen many with such earnestness and faith for God's explicit guidance on matters ranging all the way from shattering domestic or financial crisis to correcting a minor personal fault like tardiness. Quite often, however, the thoughts that seem to come from God are not answers at all. They prove to be well-intentioned, unconscious rationalizations. The AA, or indeed any man or woman who tries to run his life rigidly by this kind of prayer, by this self-serving demand of God for replies, is a particularly disconcerting individual. To any questioning or criticism of his or her actions, he or she instantly proffers their reliance upon prayer for guidance in all matters, great or small. They may have forgotten the possibility that their own wishful thinking and the human tendency to rationalize have distorted their so-called guidance. With the best of intentions, they tend to force their own will into all sorts of situations and problems with the comfortable assurance that they are acting on God's specific direction. Under such an illusion, they can, of course, create havoc without in the least intending it. So, that's some humbling stuff right there, to think that, when we demand specific answers from God. I know I've done that in my life. I have a tendency to do that. I want to know. My personality type is I want to know what's going on. I want to know the specifics, because a lot of times I'm afraid of what might happen based on past things. And that's not really how God, I am learning that's not really how God answers my prayers anymore. He typically answers me in just reassuring me of who He is and who I am, and how much He loves me, and how much, different scriptures will come to mind about, how much goodness He wants for me. And that becomes more precious than any direct answer. Now, there are times He will give me direct answers, but it's typically those direct answers have come when I am in that place of not necessarily seeking them, just seeking Him versus seeking specifics. And these are some powerful words here that I think I'm going to finish with. We have found that the actual good results of prayer are beyond question. They are matters of knowledge and experience. Listen to all these promises that you're going to hear here. All those who have persisted have found strength not ordinarily their own. They have found wisdom beyond their usual capability. And they have increasingly found a peace of mind which can stand firm in the face of difficult circumstances. And for many of you, that's, losing this weight, getting healthy again. We discover that we do receive guidance for our lives to just about the extent that we stop making demands upon God to give to us in order and on our terms. Almost any experienced AA, and again, you can use overeater or whatever you want to interject there, will tell how his affairs have taken remarkable and unexpected turns for the better as he tried to improve his conscious contact with God. He will also report that out of every season of grief or suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy or even unjust, new lessons for living were learned, new resources of courage were uncovered, and that finally, inescapably, the conviction came that God does move in mysterious ways His wonders to perform. All this should be very encouraging news for those who recoil from prayer because they don't believe in it, or because they feel themselves cut off from God's help and direction. All of us, without exception, pass through times that we can pray only with the greatest exertion of will. Occasionally, we go even further than this. We are seized with a rebellion so sickening that we simply won't pray. When these things happen, we should not think too ill of ourselves. We should simply resume prayer as soon as we can, doing what we know to be good for us. Perhaps one of the greatest rewards of meditation and prayer is the sense of belonging that comes to us. We no longer live in a completely hostile world. We are no longer lost and frightened and purposeless. The moment we catch every glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see the moment we catch even a glimpse of God's will, the moment we begin to see truth, justice, and love as the real and eternal things in life, we are no longer deeply disturbed by all the seeming evidence to the contrary that surrounds us in purely human affairs. We know that God lovingly watches over us. We know that when we turn to him, all will be well with us, here and hereafter. Get you one of these books. It's powerful stuff, man. I'm telling you, it's powerful stuff. So yeah, this will be probably the second longest meditation that we do, because it's, last week we talked about doing the inventory. Well, this is pretty much, these are brother and sister in that process. Prayer and meditation comes along with me doing my inventory. They all kind of, have this marriage between them. And it's vital. It's vital for health, for spiritual health. And spiritual health is vital for emotional health. And emotional health is vital for physical health. Again, they're all one and the same. So, yeah, hope y'all learned something. I hope you receive something that will help you in this area. And if you have any specific questions or are struggling in this area at all, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to help you and talk with you about that. But yeah, God bless you. We'll talk to you soon.